had I been given an order to invade Greenland, I would have refused the order.
Refuse the order or resign your commission?
You don't have to resign. If it's illegal or
Ah,
immoral, you don't have to
so
resign.
you consider
You
an invasion
simply
order for
say
Greenland?
no.
You believe,
I'm
General,
sorry.
you believe an order to invade Greenland would be unlawful and could be refused
I'm
by personnel?
I'm not making that judgment because that makes this a very political discussion. I'm telling you, had I
Yeah.
been given an order to invade Greenland, I would have said no.
Now, I want to welcome now to the program General Philip Breedlove, a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. Hi to you, General.
Good to see you this morning.
Always welcome, General. Let me ask you first of all, if I can, not just as a military man, but as an American, what are your thoughts on the suggestion now that the events, the awful events in Minneapolis and the political round swirling around, could come to pose a threat to the republic itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have history that makes this very tough in our country. If you go back to the shooting at Kent State earlier in the last century, where four National Guardsmen fired into a crowd and there was death. And so over the years, we have tried to avoid putting our military into policing situations. And when we first began to deploy our current National Guard troops, this was the concern that many had, and I'll include myself in that. Remember that we've come out of a period where our nation has never been closer to our military. The sacrifices of our military in Iraq and then Afghanistan, the American people were behind nearly 100% the service and the sacrifice of our military. And now, when you start throwing the military into policing matters, it begins to erode that, and that's what scares me the most. Is that the American people, their respect and love for the brave young men and women in our services is going to begin to erode. And so that's what worries me the most because the strength of our country in an international sense is our economy and our military. And what we don't need is the American people losing confidence in its military.
Okay, I hear you're pretty clear. A pretty clear statement of concern about that. I mean, there has so far been no massive outbreak of disorder in Minneapolis after what happened yesterday, and let us hope that that is how it stays. But we have in the recent past heard President Trump threatening to send in the military, the professional military of the USA, if he's prevented from deploying the National Guard in the way that he wishes, using anti-insurrection powers. Would that be?
So, John,
what would your take on that be?
well, John, we've done this together many times, and so you know I'm a friend, and I'm not attacking you, but I don't agree with your characterization of the professional military versus the National Guard.
Okay,
Our National Guard is a professional military, and
sure.
some of our National Guard have I'm going to say it one more time, far more combat experience than some of our young, what you call professional military.
Yeah.
So I know that was not intended.
No.
I just wanted to clear that up. Our Guard is a highly
Yeah.
professional force.
No,
And
believe me, General. I meant no slice on the
no, I get
National
it.
Guard. But your thoughts on the potential use of these insurrection powers?
It's foreign to me as a citizen and a person who wore our uniform for 39 years active and 43 years if you count my 4 years of reserve time. It's unthinkable that we would use the American military to fight the American people. It's unthinkable. And that's why we have police forces and things for these matters. I think, John, the bigger picture here, and I know you know this, is that our country is so horribly divided right now. And the politicians, primarily the fringes on the left and the fringes on the right, are driving to further divide us. They want to herd us, clamp down on us, count on us being clamped down, and then go get some more to hurt. And right now, it's a fight out there to try to divide Americans because that's the way politics, politicians, and political parties see that they stay in power. That's what we've got to change in America.
Yeah.
We need to be governed by Americans, not politicians. And right now, I think some of our leaders are confused about what their role is.
When you say some of the of your leaders, I mean, I'd invite you just to be a little clearer. I realise it's not your normal domain to stray into purely political matters, but this is if we're talking about the very survival of the republic, this transcends, maybe normal inhibitions. When you talk about leaders inflaming and not containing divisions, who do you mean? Do you mean the White House? Do you mean President Trump?
Here's who I blame. I don't like to do politics, so I'm only going to make a brief excursion here. Here's who I blame. We have, I believe, a large number of real citizen politicians in America, and they are in the middle. And they are trying to work with their parties to govern. But we have fringes on both sides, absolute fringe operators on the left and on the right. And they drive the political process, especially in the primaries, in a manner that divides America. These nearly communist people on one side and these extreme isolationists and nationalists on the other, and they are trying to drive everyone apart. But there are a group in the middle who I believe have the right intentions for our government, and we need to figure out how to empower them because the current way that we do politics, political party business is not helping right now.
Okay, now, General, I'm going to turn to Venezuela and put this to you. It's a piece of news which is literally, as we're speaking, just coming in. It tells us that the United States Senate has advanced a war powers resolution which would block the president's use of the American armed forces to engage in hostilities and operations within and against Venezuela unless authorized by Congress. Now, a small group of Senate Republicans joined with all the Democrats to narrowly bring this in by 52 to 47. It seems to be largely symbolic, but what do you think?
Well, I just said partially what I think, and that is there are a group of people in the middle who, in our political systems, remember, America is trifurcated in the legal, the legislative, and the executive. And I believe that the legislative is waking up to its responsibilities to be a part of how this nation runs. I think a better conversation, frankly, and I don't mean to belittle what you just asked, but is the way that Congress is beginning to wake up about the conversation about Greenland.
Yes.
It is beyond craziness. It is absolutely absurd that we would have people talking about using military power in this matter of Greenland. I mean, it is literally unthinkable that we would even talk about it, much less do it. And what we see is Congress is beginning to build a coalition on the left and on the right that would help our executive branch in these matters.
Yes.
And help is an interesting word there,
yes.
But you know where I'm headed.
Indeed, indeed. Look, I do want to ask you this. We both know it is the duty and the job of military personnel to do as they are instructed by their superior officers and to follow the broader commands of their political leaders. Now, we're talking about Greenland. Now, the idea of invading Greenland, physically invading Greenland and taking the land by force may seem remote. It may seem pretty much inconceivable. But it has been, still as we speak, it's been left on the table. Now, were such an order, General, to be given from the Pentagon, from the Secretary of Defense, from the President of the United States, if we take the view that it is up to soldiers to do as they're ordered, I wonder how that would be greeted in the Pentagon? I'm not asking you to divulge private conversations, but I know you to be in contact with your former fellow commanders. How would they react? Could we be looking at resignations rather than taking action that would, it is said, imperil, even destroy the NATO alliance?
Well, first of all, let me take umbrage with one more word you just used.
Yeah,
Said that, that we believe that we are a government that where the military is beholding to its political leaders.
for legal instructions, I mean.
Yes, I would never use the word you used, political.
Ah,
I like to talk about civil control of the military,
yeah,
civil,
yeah, I hear
not
that.
political. I have no alliance to any political party,
Sure.
period, paragraph.
Yeah,
But civil leadership, yes, we believe in that in America.
yeah,
And there's this famous discussion right now where at least one senator is under review for the way he talked about this, et cetera.
yeah.
But
Mark
the
Kelly.
basis of this conversation is, again, rooted in history. You may or may not remember, John, because it was more important in America, but the My Lai incidents in Cambodia and Vietnam time, where soldiers did a horrible thing on the battlefield and their defense was,
Yeah.
we were ordered to do it.
Yes.
And in that case, what they determined was that is not a defense. If you're given an illegal or
Yeah.
immoral order, you are not bound to execute
Yeah.
that order.
But General, I mean, an order to physically invade Greenland, it may cause appalling consequences strategically.
May I just tell you that
it would
I
not be
can't speak
illegal,
for.
General, would it? It would not be unlawful.
Let me just tell you that in order to sort of take the political out of this discussion, had I been given an order to invade Greenland, I would have refused the order.
Refuse the order or resign your commission.
You don't have to resign. If it's illegal or immoral, you don't have to resign.
So you consider
You
an invasion
simply
order
say
for Greenland?
no.
You believe, General,
I'm sorry?
you believe an order to invade Greenland would be unlawful and could be refused by President?
I'm not making that judgment because that makes this a very political discussion. I'm telling you, had I
Yeah.
been given an order to invade Greenland, I would have said no. Now, when you do that, you're in great peril in your position, and the full weight of your chain of command may come crashing down on you, but you have the recourse of the courts and the recourse of determination about who was right or wrong. And that's what we have to do. And I'm not going to make a statement because it would get inflamed in the current situation. But may I assure you, had I, as the SACEUR or the commander of U.S. European Command, had been given an order to invade Greenland, I would have said no.
Okay, I mean, General, for a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO to make a statement like that, you would refuse an order to act against Greenland. That is still quite a very strong statement. General Breedlove, thank you so much for talking to